You're in the right place at the right time, stretching from the distant spaceports of Black Spire and Mos Eisley, all the way to the jewel of the core at Coruscant in the bright center of the galaxy, slamming into your holoprojector like a supercharged nanoparticle of coaxium. This is the Star Wars Unfiltered podcast. I'm your very animated host, John, and my more subdued and dry co-host is
Jason.
And we are here to bring you your needed dose of Star Wars film, TV, book, comic, gaming, and collecting news. It is December 11th, 2020, and we just momentarily, within the last hour or so, finished watching the latest Mandalorian episode of the Believer, which was the second to last one of season 2. What did you think of the Believer?
It was good for filler. I mean,
Yeah.
It just kind of pushed the story, but it didn't add too much. It was nice seeing, kind of the other side of the story with the Imperials,
Yeah. I like that aspect.
Kind of a glimpse and a little bit of a normalization before they got back into them being, space
Assholes.
Nazis.
Yeah, I was noticing that, like, especially when they came in on the Juggernaut and they're all getting cheered. And I was telling Nicole, because she's such a casual and everything. And I was like, there's so many good Imperials that are fighting for what they think is, I mean, it's basically, there's so many gray areas where there is people that want peace and order in the galaxy, and they're just doing it just to kind of clean up the piracy and the criminals and all these other planets that they think are just, trash heaps, basically.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I can totally see that side of it. I like those Star Wars stories that dive into that more, whether it's TIE Fighter or whatever.
And it was nice getting a little bit of a backstory to Mayfield.
Yes.
Because I really like Bill Burr.
Yeah.
Like his comedy and stuff really like, and the character Mayfield is really good too.
Yeah, I feel like he was better in this than last season's episode with the heist kind of thing.
Yeah.
I mean, he was funny in that last episode, but he just kind of seemed like a smart asshole who was just good with guns. There wasn't much to him, but we definitely got some backstory on him on this one. And I feel like he had a good range of acting too. Like his facial expressions when they're sitting at the table with that Imperial commander and he's going through all these emotions of like sadness and trying to hold back his anger. Yes. And that was really some good stuff. And I don't know who plays that Imperial commander, but wow, the way he delivered his lines and his eyes and everything, like total asshole.
Well, and it was interesting seeing an Imperial with, I guess that's kind of like a Southern drawl a little bit.
I started noticing that. I noticed that too. I was like, okay, this guy's from some backwater, from Tynes Horkey or some other backwater planet. Yeah. Who knows? Yeah, I know it wasn't like the typical British kind of thing. And there was definitely Rogue One vibes because of, you see the Juggernaut, which of course, that although it was a new kind of Juggernaut, that actually goes back to, well, it was in Revenge of the Sith on Kashyyyk for like one shot where you see it like rolling over the beach shooting missiles. Yeah. And then we saw it in Rogue One when it was the prisoner transport. But that actually goes all the way back to Ralph McQuarrie concept paintings for The Empire Strikes Back. Before they went with walkers, the original plan was to have these giant wheeled vehicles on Hoth for the Empire. And so that's just cool to see a Juggernaut again in some capacity. And then the other thing was there was two specific, I think, inspirations for this episode. One was obviously Speed, the movie, because there was the whole, Rhydonium, which is going to explode, and it heats up as they go fast. And so it's like, okay,
They should
Bill
have
Burr.
jumped. That bridge should have went out, and they should have jumped that
Oh, I
bridge,
know,
just like in.
right? I
Yeah.
know. I thought there was going to be something like that, and Bill Burr was basically playing Sandra Bullock, and Mando was Keanu.
He should have had
But
like a Wildcats sweatshirt on.
I know, right? On top of that, though, um, there was this movie in the 70s that I had rented years ago because Tangerine Dream had done the score. It's called Sorcerer, and it was a William Friedkin movie, the guy that directed The Exorcist, and it was from 1977, and it had Roy Scheider, and he was the only well-known American actor in it. It was basically a very European movie, but it was about Roy Scheider and some other guys going down to South America, and they have to transport dynamite on this truck going through the jungle. And the whole movie is them avoiding obstacles, whether it's fallen trees or terrorists or whatever. And as soon as I saw that there was this explosive thing and they're in a jungle, I'm like, are they inspired by Sorcerer here? This is like so
It's
much like it.
it's
So
funny. The only thing I know about that movie is that it's not. It's called Sorcerer, but it's not about like magic and stuff. It's not a fantasy movie.
almost everyone who knows about it always originally thinks that, because also like the logo for the movie is this kind of fantastical kind of horror looking logo,
Mm-hmm.
so it doesn't seem to fit the content, but it was so yeah, I think people, yeah, until you see, and that's a great movie, by the way. That was like um it's one of the best made movies I've ever seen, and it was back in the 70s, so they actually went to South America and actually blew shit up, and it's like guerrilla filmmaking at its best. But what's funny is it came out like a month after Star Wars and made like no money.
Yeah.
And so there's all these interviews with William Friedkin going, Star Wars ruined my movie.
I wonder. They should make a documentary about all the movies that kind of like like
Were affected.
yeah, were affected in the wake of Star Wars, like
I
that
know, right?
year and a half afterwards when everybody was just going to see Star Wars. Probably a
Right.
lot of movies got pushed out or didn't get a lot of wide release because the limited amount of screens were just showing Star Wars. Like
Right. Exactly.
it'd be an
And
interesting thing to look at.
absolutely. And then of course there's all the knockoffs of Star Wars that were really terribly made shortly
Hmm.
after 1978 and onward. Including like the Black Hole from Disney. um but anyway, that's an interesting tangent. Maybe we could cover that on another episode, because that is a cool topic. But anyway, yeah, I immediately noticed that inspiration. It had to have been slightly intentional on some part on this episode.
Yeah.
Someone had seen Sorcerer. Um, so yeah, there was a lot of Imperial action. The fight with the pirate slash natives on the top of the Juggernaut was really cool.
Hmm.
I actually really felt like they were there in the jungle doing it. It didn't None of it looked like special effect backgrounds or anything. Like whatever method they're using, whether it's the volume, as they call it, that wraparound
Yeah.
CG, whatever method they're using, man, it's working.
Yeah, it looked really good. I can't really think of any time when the special effects have been lacking across both seasons so far.
Yeah,
It's
I
all been
know.
really good.
It's all been, I'd say, as good as anything in the movies right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not like back in the 90s when you would see Star Trek on TV, and there'd just be a lot of shots where you go, okay, there's the TV Star Trek budget and here's the movie Star Trek budget, and there was always
Right.
that kind of disconnect. But these days, because of technology and whatever, things are just looking great across the board. Um, and oh, another thing I wanted to mention at the beginning of the episode, when they're getting Mayfield from that trash planet with the junk and the TIE fighter shells and everything. And there's that prison droid that comes up to him and says, prisoner 5534, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
There is an almost exact scene, almost exactly like that. And I think this is purely circumstantial. I don't think someone went back and took this from a Star Wars story knowing, but there's an almost exact scene in the Dark Forces. I don't know if it's in Rebel Agent or Jedi Knight. I think it's in Jedi Knight, the third Dark Forces graphic novel. That was the novel version of the story. When they go to Ruusan, before Kyle and Jan even get to the planet, they end up going with some other like rebels and stuff. They sneak in through the Imperial blockade, and there's a whole period of like a couple weeks that the Jedi Knight game doesn't show you, that the novel expanded on, like how they got down to the planet and all that. But there's a scene where Janors goes to this New Republic prison planet, and there's this one guy that she has to get out of being a prisoner, and there's even a droid that comes up to him and says, prisoner blah blah blah, you need to come with me. And he's like, why what's the deal? And it's exactly like that. Like, just switch out Kara for Jan Ors, and it's like the same scene.
That would be a really deep cut, I feel like.
I know. And I just get the feeling that it's one of those things that's just purely a story coincidence. I mean, because there's tons of movies where someone's getting pulled out of prison with paperwork. I mean, that's just a trope, gotta get the criminal out. So it was just one of those things where I was like, because of me having listened to my Jedi Knight audio drama like 1,000 times for the last 20 years, I'm the one who's like, oh shit, this is just like that scene. But it's definitely worthy of a re-listen for anyone that doesn't know. Just pop in Jedi Knight audio drama and you will hear
we
it.
all have that laying around.
Yeah. It's probably on YouTube, I'm guessing. I know a lot of old Star Wars audio dramas are, like Dark Empire, but yeah, just so everyone knows. And it was cool seeing Boba Fett with cleaned up nice armor that was all polished. Although
he just kind of gave it a new paint job because it still had the ding, and the dent in the helmet. I'm assuming there's still a dent in the cod piece. Somebody tried to take a shot at his nuts at some point.
These nuts. It is interesting seeing Tamura in the armor. I mean, the fact is, this is the first time he's ever physically portrayed Boba Fett. So there's all these people, and we've been saying like it doesn't look like Fett from the movies. He's fat now or whatever, and that's just how it's going to be. He's never physically portrayed him.
Well,
so
did he portray Django in the armor at all?
yes.
Okay.
He was actually in the armor for Django, but then that's Django, and so we have there's a different expectation for us.
But he is older. Like Boba is older than Django was,
right?
In
Attack of the Clones.
But the funny thing is, like, if he was like on Tatooine hanging out, he should be emaciated, I would think, or he's living high on the hog, killing crate dragons or whatever.
I mean, yeah, it's hard to say. I guess we need more backstory as to where he.
To be honest, if this was the old EU, we'd probably get that.
Yeah,
but probably won't get that with
unless this upcoming Mandalorian novel delves into some kind of backstory for not just Mando and Din, but also some Boba. Who knows? But yeah, it was just, he's doing Fett physically for the first time. There's going to be some slight change in how we perceive him, but I haven't had any issues. It's been great, and I enjoy seeing Slave One, and now we've never really seen the interior other than in comic books. So
right, and now Yeah, it's
Yeah.
pretty explicit how it works inside. It
Right.
spins.
The whole gyroscopic kind of
Yeah.
thing, and that was always interesting how they came up with that. And we got to see the seismic charge,
Oh, that was
which
so good. Yeah.
oh, I know. As soon as he hit the button and it came out, I was like, yes, yes. That was I think one of the highlights of Attack of the Clones is like as far as cool theater moments where the entire theater just went, whoa,
Yeah. The chase,
Yeah,
the pursuit. Yeah.
right. So that was badass. And I'm enjoying seeing more of Fennec Shand, Ming Na Wen playing her. I initially thought, because we thought she died in season 1 and she was only in one episode, I just thought, okay, that's that. Whatever. Just some random assassin who's a total badass and she's dead. Just like Michael Bean, just like
Yeah.
whoever.
He's
So
gonna
it's
show up next season and reveal a
cyber
prosthetic
stomach.
stomach. Yeah. It just looks like it just opens up. It looks like C-3PO's like bare stomach, the wires and stuff.
He's missing part of his face and he's got like a Terminator eye. It won't stop coming after you. It is never gonna stop. Um, no, but yeah, I mean, gosh, I just felt like I wanted to see more of Michael Bean. But Ming Na Wen has been really good, and going back now to recent news in this new Bad Batch trailer, did you get a chance to see that?
I did watch it. Yeah.
Uh, Fennec Shand is in that. She is apparently in that show, but it's so quick. In fact, when I rewatched the trailer again early this morning, I played it at like 50% speed just so I could see everything.
Yeah.
And yeah, her character is definitely in it in a few shots. So it's one thing is apparently Fennec Shand doesn't age, which is actually like Ming Na Wen, because she's 57 years old in real life and she looks great. She looks like she's
Would
like,
not be able to tell at
no, she
all.
looks like she's 40. She looks like 40 to 45, basically.
Yeah.
Like really fit, really good. And so it's funny, everyone's kind of saying, oh, her character doesn't age then if she's in the Bad Batch, because that's like 30 years earlier. Um, but yeah, and hopefully they got her to voice her own character, which I'm sure they did on that show.
I would think so. Yeah.
Yeah, cross platform stuff. And so I think that's all I got to say about The Believer. I don't have too many other thoughts. Do you have anything else that you can think of?
No, it didn't really push anything other than it just kind of moved the story forward. It didn't pile
Yeah.
anything on.
Yeah.
The previous episode, the tragedy did.
Yes, and we could even talk a little bit about that because we only covered it here and there in our gaming commentary.
Yeah.
But I wanted to mention one more thing about The Believer, the little holographic speech that Mando gives to Gideon. I like that it was a mirror image of the one Gideon gave to Mando in the bunker.
Right, right.
That was pretty cool. I still feel like it was some part of it. It slightly felt out of character to Mando, for Mando to give a boasting speech like that a little bit, but I think it's really putting forward the point that he loves Grogu, and
Yes.
he's going to do anything he can to get him. And you could see Gideon kind of swallow nervously. So it's like classic Star Wars, yeah, so I didn't have an issue with it, but so yeah, the tragedy previous episode, we've been raving on that one all through the last week, and I rewatched it again last night, and so I try and rewatch these at least a week later, or give or take, so I can kind of pick up some different things. And there's there's so much to say about that because it was kind of a milestone in that we're getting the return of Boba Fett, not just a glimpse, but an actual like story return of Boba
Yeah.
Fett for the first time in canon since Return of the Jedi. And
Yes.
they've been quiet about Fett in the canon. And I think they always had something up their sleeve. They wanted to do something with it. And The Mandalorian was the opportunity. Um
Well,
oh,
what they'll probably do is getting Grogu back. Mando will die, and then it'll be on Boba to take care of Grogu, and it'll
right.
be That's definitely where the series is going, I think.
Right. You never know. And I will say the way it's setting things up, I like that it's slightly becoming more ensemble as the season goes on. And I hope that at the end of the season, people just don't go their separate ways. I know Boba said, I'm indebted to you to save the child now that he got his armor back. But it would be since Mando doesn't have Razor Crest anymore, since that blew up, it would be great if now this is the team. They go around. It's Fennec, it's Fett, it's Mando, Kara, and like this is like the crack team that is gonna like have more adventures, on
That
Slave
would be
One.
cool. Yeah, yeah. Otherwise,
So
I could see if Fennec is teamed up with Fett, they could probably
yes,
support some sort of show,
so
possibly.
basically Fennec is the Dengar of of Boba Fett. It's just this is where we go into the Bounty Hunter Wars
Yeah,
trilogy.
she's one tough barv.
Yes. What did you think of the stormtroopers in the tragedy? They were actually getting a little more, even though they're totally obliterated, they got more action than they had in a while.
Yeah, I mean, it was nice to see the classic look of
Yeah.
stormtroopers because it's so close to the original trilogy. They
And
haven't
also,
they
I
haven't
get
upgraded to
tired.
the sequel trilogy
Yeah, and
look.
sometimes I get tired of specialized stormtroopers in every new Star Wars thing now. Like even when you play Jedi Fallen Order, there's like Purge Troopers, which is another new one. And I
Mm.
mean, don't get me wrong, I love seeing new variations. That's been that's actually part of the Star Wars tradition going back to The Empire Strikes Back. Where it's like, oh, snow troopers, and then Return of the Jedi gave us biker scouts, and they've always added new ships and new
New
troops. So
ships, new ships, new ships, new troops, new toys. That's what it
new
is.
toys, right? And but yeah, it's always fun to just see classic stormtroopers. And we did get a mortar stormtrooper. Not that he
Yeah,
looked
that was
different.
interesting. That was interesting. That
They got World War II mortars in Star Wars.
setting up the big place emplacement gun or
Right.
whatever.
The
That was
E-Web.
kind of cool.
Yeah,
Yes, E-Web. That's what it's called.
that's right. And they've been really bringing the E-Web back like nothing else lately because that goes back to Empire Strikes Back. But again, we didn't even really see it used very much in Empire. The snowtroopers are setting it up, and then Han basically blasts them before they
Right.
can get it going. Um, yeah, so my only slight criticism of the tragedy was that, like you and I were saying before, it just looks like the hills of Southern California. I mean, it was.
Good.
I did
Good
not
reason for
feel.
that.
I did not feel like I was. I think more than any other episode, as far as the setting, it felt like a fan film. But that's only because we live in Southern California and
Yeah,
we
yeah.
see it 24/7. But
Well, it's like the only thing it was missing it was the what are those rocks called out right outside of LA? They use it for everything, Star Trek and all that.
Yes, yeah, the Vasquez rock,
Vasquez,
I
that's
think.
what it is. Yeah, Vasquez
Right,
rocks.
right. It was very much like that, and actually, the ones on Tython there, I was telling Nicole, I was like, wow, this looks like Simi Valley or Northridge, because when you go on the 118 from Simi over to Northridge, like you're going to Burbank, it looks exactly like that. There's thousands of those big rocks on the hill, and
Yeah.
I've actually hiked up to the top of that, and it completely looks like that in every way. And you got those low
Did you
shrubs.
meditate? Did you
I
meditate and
should have.
contact some Jedi?
It would have been cool to see Slave One coming in while I was meditating, um, but yeah, no, I liked it. And when Fett came out and used the gaffy stick to bash the stormtroopers in, that was just super cool. Obviously,
Yeah,
like,
and like busting up the armor too.
yeah, cracking the armor, shattering the face plates. Um, I think that lends credence to the fact that he has been on Tatooine a while. If he has a gaffy stick, and
Yeah. Well,
he may,
obviously, if he was hanging out in the desert, he probably befriended the sand people and
maybe
stuff.
sand people just have a thing for Mandalorians because they're like they cover their faces, and so they're just like
Oh, that's true. Yeah, they're
that's their
like
thing,
kindred spirits.
right? Maybe Tuskens are like an old Mandalorian scouting party
Yeah,
that just crashed on Tatooine.
the sand watch.
Sand watch. You never know.
That's a
Um,
Boba had too many sand watches. That's why he's filling out
yeah,
that armor a little too much.
great scene too when he shot the missile and then I was aiming for the other one.
And he was too. I had to rewind it and make
I
sure, and he
I
was.
didn't notice that, and then you said that, and so when I watched it again last night, I was like, yeah, he did target the other one.
It
That
was
was
great.
a
So many good callbacks because he does the gun spin
the
like
gun spin like his
Django.
father.
Yeah,
Yep. Yeah, that
and
was great.
explicitly because I know that there was some question about whether Django was an actual Mandalorian or not.
Yeah.
Um, so now did they ever say one where I mean they didn't. I
It
think it was
went
implied he wasn't, but
it
it
went
was
both
never
ways because we never got a firm answer. Well, the EU of Legends said he was from the Jango Fett Open Seasons comic book, but that was never official continuity like
right.
George Lucas canon, other than the fact that he had Mandalorian armor. But then the Clone Wars series came in, and I just brushed up on this like last night. There was someone on that show saying, "Oh, Django was never a true Mandalorian." Like it was said in the show, and I
Hmm.
guess it was just kind of assumed, okay, I guess we were just mistaken all these years. He's not. But then now, of course, they're kind of going backpedaling on that, and they're like, "No, he is," because whether it was a different sect of Mandalorians, which it seems to be, um, I think it's kind of given that Mandalore is just one of those planets. It's just if you're from there, you're a Mandalorian.
Yeah.
Like
Well,
it's like the
there's
Sith, because there was like the true Sith that were the
right
species,
the racial Sith,
right? And then
ethnic
there's
Sith.
I always look at Mandalorians as being like that. You have the ethnic ones, and then you have the ones that are adopted Mandalorians,
Yeah, and
basically.
that makes sense. And that sort of quasi retcon really
Yeah,
fixes up any sort of issues with continuity there.
yeah, yeah. And I like
So
that.
making Django a foundling fixes all that.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. And I like that Fett showed the chain code. And what's interesting is when he's like, according to this chain code, this armor has been mine for 25 years. Um, just for shits and giggles, I went on my timeline, my text timeline that I've been building on for a few years now that I showed you.
Hmm.
And it's convenient because I merge canon and legends on my timeline. So what's cool though is that I can see when they say a certain year or a certain amount of time, I can go back and see if there's anything around that particular year that might connect with it. What's interesting is 25 years before The Mandalorian happens to be the same year that in the Tales of the Bounty Hunters, there was the Boba Fett story called The Last One Standing. And at the beginning of the story, it just says there's a young man sitting in a jail cell. And it's like he's a young man. It's Fett back when he was Jaster Muriel. And what's funny is that was when he became the Boba Fett we know. It happened in that year, and that happens to be 25 years before The Mandalorian. So it's just funny that it matched up with that short story on the flashback. It could have been a year or two off, but no, 25 years earlier. So that's interesting. And there's another timeline matchup I'll mention later when we talk about the Andor series, because there was something with that. But I think that wraps up my thoughts on the tragedy. Just a great return to form for Boba Fett, really.
Yeah.
And the Dark Troopers. We got to talk about them.
Well, there was the Dark Troopers are great. One of the things I noticed, you mentioned the Stormtroopers, was there was like one of the Stormtroopers at least was like very CG. I think it was when they were
I noticed that
jumping into the
up
transport.
On the platform. Yeah.
And it was very, very Attack of the Clones. I know, right? I was kind of expecting it, but it's like, oh, it's an old clone. But it was not that it was intentional, but it felt like the prequels because all of the clone troopers were CGI.
Right. And
noticeably so in some cases.
Noticeably, it was their uncanny movements and things like that. That was interesting. And one other thing too. I don't know if this is a real life thing or if they talked about it on the show or whatever. Did you notice that Django and Tamira Morrison, it's like he has dentures? You notice his teeth are a little more like pronounced than when it was Attack of the Clones. It just straight up looks like he has dentures because they're more prominent.
I hadn't noticed, but maybe he got veneers or something.
Yeah, maybe something like that. And it was something that crossed my mind, and I was like, I wonder if he's getting some sand people dentistry out there.
Oof, that doesn't sound like a good deal to me.
No, it doesn't. It'd be like going to Mexico. Cross the border for some cheap dentistry.
No thanks.
Yeah, if you go back and see it, pay attention to his mouth as he speaks. It's just kind of his teeth they look too nice. They look a little too good.
That's Hollywood.
Yeah. Who knows? Maybe he got. I mean, Tamira did a lot of stunt work, and he was very much a physical action movie guy. So I remember when he was cast for Attack of the Clones, some of the scars on his face and everything, they were like, no, this is great. We don't need to cover it with makeup or anything. Like, this is like perfect for the character. So, he's got his battle scars, which is cool.
I think looking at some pictures, I think he did get veneers.
Yeah, there was something.
So that's probably what it is.
Right.
Great. Thanks for pointing that out. It's really going to bug me from now on.
Yeah, now you'll never unsee it. What do you think of the Dark Troopers?
They were great.
Yeah.
Love Dark Troopers. The only thing they're missing was the sound.
The sound.
From the old Dark Forces sound.
Yeah, just that creepy kind of droning. Who knows? Maybe we'll still get some of that, and then
I like that the design was more severe and angular versus in the game they're sort of like rounded and even more so than like a regular stormtrooper armor. It's kind of like a quasi in between their phase 1 and phase 2.
Yeah,
because they had those ones that didn't have all the armor on. They look kind of like
Terminators, sort of.
Yeah, Terminator-esque. So it's kind of a good in between. The
Yeah.
helmets were like, yeah, it was great. The red
Yeah,
eyes.
like even if you were a casual EU fan who hadn't played Dark Forces in 25 years, you could look at these in this episode and go, "Hey, those look like Dark Troopers. Like those are the
Yeah.
Dark Troopers."
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that they launched from the ship, kind of like coming down in the pods, like in the game.
Mm-hmm.
Is very, yeah, I don't know, man. Just this is these kinds of things is the Star Wars fanboy wet dream, like of we are getting so spoiled. And I know there's so much criticism of the sequel trilogy and this and that and this and that, but it's one of those things, whether it's Grand Admiral Thrawn on Rebels or Ahsoka or now Dark Troopers and we're getting Boba Fett. This has been these last few years have just been one thing after the other as far as like here's your fanboy dream that when you were a teenager and you were reading your comics and your Star Wars novels and you dreamed of these things, now they're actually happening. So
Well, they seem to be following with Thrawn and
yeah,
with the stuff that's popping up in the Mandalorian. They're sort of doing the Marvel move of lifting not necessarily stories, but lifting characters and elements from the old EU and using it in new canon, and in a good way, so that it sort of satisfies and scratches that itch of the old EU fans,
yeah,
without having to like literally adapt, existing stories in the old EU. They don't have to do that. Just bring forward the stuff that really worked well and people liked.
yeah. And honestly, I wouldn't want a straight retelling of anything in Legends. I'd rather have something new using old elements. It's just, it's just really satisfying. And it could be something as subtle as pulling a planet like Tython, comes from. I'm pretty sure the original source of Tython was Knights of the Old Republic video game. It was part of the background of the Jedi Order where they seemed to have come from at that time period before the idea of Octo but now there's even thought that maybe Octo really wasn't the original. Maybe it was multiple original planets and that the Seeing Stone that Grogu was on might have been a communication device for the Jedi to communicate with the ones on Octo or Ossus or wherever, so that they're all kind of one deal. Or Jeddah, because there's the ancient statues on that planet. So yeah, it's interesting. I wonder if there's a bigger backstory that Story Group is laying out with the ancient Jedi.
Yeah, maybe we'll get some of that in the High Republic stuff that's going to come out.
Right. And okay, let's talk about.
Whoa. Okay. We got to talk about the biggest problem in the tragedy.
What's that?
That's the hyperspace issue. Gideon's ship.
Right.
Gideon's ship entering hyperspace in the atmosphere.
I'll tell you, when I saw that, I was looking at my TV and I go, "This is no Spice Dream."
I wish it was. This series is dead.
This has been a thing. First with well, if we want to include the Millennium Falcon hypering through the shields of Starkiller Base, that's kind of the same. That's where it kind of started. I call it story laziness, is what it really comes down to in that case. With the other cases that are purely visual, they're just being quick and lazy. It's like, oh, in The Rise of Skywalker, like, let's show the ships launch from the planet, and instead of cutting to the outside the planet in the next shot, let's just have them launch right from the atmosphere. Like, come on.
And
you don't even need to show it inner hyperspace. Just show it fly away from the planet and then transition. You don't need to actually show the jump.
Yeah.
You know,
It's something that was laid out as far as like a rule of Star Wars way back in A New Hope, as far
right.
as gravity wells and how hyperspace kind of works in a
And that
super
was,
overview way.
and you know, and Lucas used, he could have had Han hyper out immediately, but he wanted a reason for the audience to worry. So it's like he's calculating as the Star Destroyers shoot at them, and that's the story element that works. He had it serve the story and make a kind of a you just don't know if they're going to get out of it. But of course you do know. But like there's some kind of tension there, you know. Um, but yeah, it's that's just kind of been thrown out the window in the new canon, and then they have to
It
have
was
Pablo Hidalgo come up with these things in the visual guides to help explain it, which is fine, but like, yeah,
before it showed up in the tragedy, I was just able to be like, well, that's just like, story laziness and an issue with JJ and company, just kind of not paying attention to that.
yeah,
And I was like, whatever. But then when it shows up in something like the tragedy, then I'm like, now I gotta like,
I
now I gotta
know,
like accept it as like, because there's a lot of details in the show that follow the quote unquote rules and
yeah,
stuff. So in my head, I think I mentioned this to you before, but in my head, it's, Bevel Lemelisk came up with some
hmm
new hyperdrive technology at some point in the preceding years, and it got deployed late. And
right,
then
right.
Gideon's ship is the first ship that could enter
I think,
hyperspace in an atmosphere and in a gravity well.
yeah, I think that's perfectly a valid headcanon explanation, and those are the kinds of things I think about too. You know, as I'm watching, because things like that, I try not to be nitpicky, but some things like that do take me out if they've been very firmly established in other stories, you know,
Yeah, yeah.
as they have been. So yeah,
Well,
it's just
there's a whole ship, right? There's interdictor star
right.
destroyers. It's a whole ship in like in different media, in games
And
and
in
stuff, and it
canon, they've used the interdictors. It was used in Rebels to pull the
right.
the
That's right.
the ghost out of hyperspace. So
Yeah,
yeah, it's just people being lazy, and that's why Story Group needs to, not late in the game, but while things are still being written, kind of lay that down and make sure. But then, okay, in this case, I could see where they're going because they wanted the Dark Trooper to fly up holding Grogu.
mm-hmm.
Maybe they thought that that was the primary visual element they wanted to capture. So they didn't want to show the Dark Troopers fly to a transport.
Yeah, but
Then,
you know what I would have done is
mhm.
like, Dark Trooper opens his chest and there's a little compartment and he just shoves Grogu in, in the little refrigerator in his chest and then closes it.
That would have been good. That would have been really good. Darn it. Darn you, Story Group. You could have done that.
Missed opportunity. They got to hire us
I know, man.
100%.
Seriously.
So
Um,
that was the biggest. That was my only gripe. That's
yeah.
really my only gripe in the whole series so far. And that's like, that's like nitpicking,
Yeah.
weird little continuity stuff. Most people aren't going to care too much about it.
No, and it's been nothing like the nitpicks that we've had across the sequel trilogy. So this Mando has been knocking it out of the park pretty consistently. So yeah, credit to them for the things that have gone right. Uh anyway, I think we had a good review of the last two episodes while they're fresh, especially The Believer being fresh today.
Yeah.
Let's have a little chat about the huge Disney announcement of yesterday on December 10th when they had their investor announcement slash meeting. It's always funny when the we get all this news. It's when the shareholders get their news of
Mm-hmm.
what's going to excite them to make their bucks over the
Hold on to
next.
your shares. Hold on to your shares, kids.
Yeah, there's something actually depressing about the thought of that. as cool as it is when this news comes in, I'm just thinking of just accountants just going like, oh yeah, that looks good, that'll make money, and they got their cigars, like some
Yeah, I mean
cartoon.
it's the reality of Star Wars being. I mean, everybody would crap on Lucas about, oh, you're just doing this for toy sales, all this stuff. But
Right.
now it's like, well, you thought that was like corporate stuff.
Yeah,
Like now
this is
now
corporate.
this is corporate. Now this is
It's
corporate.
corporate. Yeah. Seriously. And at least with Lucas, with the toy sales and all that stuff, he always fed it back into the machine. It always got reinvested in new technologies at ILM or
Oh
educational
yeah.
stuff,
Yeah.
lots of
It's
charities. I mean,
yeah.
Skywalker Ranch was always getting expanded with new things, but it always fed back into the company, and everyone, from what we could tell, everyone was always paid and treated very well for 99%
A
of
huge
everybody.
reason a huge reason why he sold Lucasfilm was to keep people working.
Right,
That was a
right.
big part of it. Is he had all these people under his employ, and if he just didn't want to do it anymore, what is he going to do? Shut it down and put all these people out of work? He's like, no, I'll sell it to Disney, and they'll
Yeah,
do whatever they're going to do with it and keep all these people employed and stuff.
yeah. And I'm
So
not surprised he went with Disney, because that was the whole reason he did Star Tours in the 80s. He said in interviews back then he grew up as a huge fan of Disney. He went to Disneyland the day it opened, I think he said, when he was a kid. And so he's always had a love of Disney, just as we
I
did when we were kids, to a degree.
yeah, they have a history, and in fact, I seem to recall there being a story that the board or something had approached him at some point to be CEO of Disney, and I think it was before
I remember
Eisner.
that.
I think it
Yeah,
was pre-Eisner. It was before, because there's a whole history of pre and post Eisner drama with Disney's board and everything.
right,
And I
right.
think he was approached in the 80s,
Hmm.
but he turned him down or whatever. I can't remember if that's exactly true, but it's
We'll have to
something I
look
read
into
at
that
some
some
point.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because I have read some of that stuff that about Disney. Because yeah, pretty much when we were kids, that was right when Michael Eisner kind of took over in the mid '80s or early
Oh, he
'80s.
was he was definitely for me as a kid. He was the face
He
of
was,
Disney.
because I used to watch The Wonderful World of Disney just about every week. I think it was like Sunday nights, and they always had, if it wasn't a classic Disney cartoon, it was some TV special or something. They always had
Yeah.
things on. And yeah, he was just everywhere. It was always him talking with Mickey in the suit, like for all those things. um
Anyway,
anyway, Disney memories. That'll be another podcast. Let's talk about these shows, because there's a bunch here. I want to get through them and give each one a minute or
and
two,
a movie too.
and a movie. I made a list of what I felt was the most exciting.
Okay, let's go down the list.
But first, I want to talk about the ones that actually had sizzle reels /
Oh, okay.
trailers.
Okay.
We kind of talked about Bad Batch already. We don't really need to cover it. Bad Batch looks amazing. It looks like a continuation of Clone Wars season
Mm-hmm.
7. I like the trailer music they use. It's very electronica. It looks badass.
Yeah.
And I really like the Bad Batch from season 7. I thought they were wonderful characters, and I even said I hope these guys show up again because they are super cool.
Yeah.
I didn't know we were going to get a show until a few months ago, but I have no complaints. The show looks amazing. We're going to get actual post Empire Day, like Rise of the Empire stories, which that was cool that they used Palpatine in the trailer giving his
Yeah.
speech.
That and they used Ian McDermott.
Yeah, yeah, it was like straight from the
Like it
movie.
was cool. Yeah.
So I'm more than anything, I love the Bad Batch. I'm excited about the potential for stories in the Rise of the Empire era. There is so much potential to see how things spread through the galaxy with all kinds of mopping up the separatists, or the rise of rebel cells, whatever it may be. We'll get to see a lot of that.
I'm gonna need to watch the Clone Wars. I'm gonna
Yeah.
need to finish it.
Yeah, I'm gonna rewatch the Clone Wars probably through this year. I kind of started a month or two ago with the first handful, but yeah, I'm gonna watch it again. And okay, so Bad Batch, that's super cool. That's one thing. We got our first glimpse of things for Andor, which is now titled. Thank God. I've been looking at least once a month. I would go on the internet and go, is there any news on this Cassian series? Like anything. And it was always like, oh, we're delayed because of COVID. It's still going to happen. Production is starting, blah, blah, blah. But it's like, I just wanted a title. Now, I will admit I'm a little underwhelmed at the title of just Andor. I almost thought they were going to kind of make it more Rebel Alliance centric on the title, like,
Rise of the Rebellion.
Rise of the Rebellion, or like, Fire of the Rebellion, or something that would like have people know that this is a pre A New Hope story. But with the sizzle reel and the title, they're clearly making it that Cassian is the focus. And I like that the sizzle reel had to remind people about Rogue One, because for any casual, with all these blur of Star Wars stories, and you got Mando and Rise of Skywalker in recent years, I think casuals may have forgotten about Rogue One by now. It's
good as it is. It kind of sits in the back of my mind too. I don't think about Rogue One as existing.
right.
I don't know why. It's one of the best Disney movies.
It's funny because
it probably is the best, to be honest. But
for me, and I've mentioned this before, it and Solo are my two favorites of the Disney era.
yeah,
And every time I see one, I go, "Oh, it's better than the other." And then I see the other one, and I'm like, "Oh, no, 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 the Rogue One is better." But I think about it a lot because now when I do my once or twice a year trilogy rewatchings or movie rewatchings, I always watch Rogue One and A New Hope back to back now. It's always just like because they just dovetail right into each other. So I just go, what the hey, I'll just put them both on. And
I think Rogue One edges out Solo for me, because Solo, as good as it is kind of, Rogue One isn't weighed down by the whole, like, well, you got these existing characters that were played by iconic actors, and you got new actors. You got to get used to that, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it's just that makes Rogue One kind of edge it out.
And also, I'm a sucker for, and I've mentioned this multiple times, I'm a sucker for battles with vehicles and X-wings and stormtroopers and seeing the Empire in its prime. Like, it's just that is the time period that I just love, just purely as from the technology and the vehicles and what's available.
And the Vader scene.
And the Vader scene. I mean, it's just, anyway, this is turning into a Rogue One review. But my point
Andor
is,
looks good.
Andor looks good. I loved some of the concept art that we got to see, because that's our only glimpse into it. And at one point, you see like a big Venator Star Destroyer turned on its side.
That's what I was gonna say. That thing, I can't wait to see something like that. It's turned on its side. That's how they're building it, I think.
Right, or tearing it apart, probably because it's like post Clone Wars junk. But
oh yeah, maybe.
Or it's just like the hidden base of a rebel cell or something. Who knows? But
yeah, they might have captured some or something.
It reminded me of Jedi Fallen Order, because you start on the planet, on this junk planet, where they're tearing apart Clone Wars stuff. So in the game, you see these Venators like that, and you're just running around, and you see like the what are those walkers? The ATTEs from Attack of the Clones, just kind of being torn up. So seeing that concept art looks super badass. I know at one point there's another shot of Cassian like in a Jedi starfighter cockpit, like he maybe refurbished one or something. But I'm excited about that. And then also I wanted to mention on the timeline, I think Andor is tentatively set for 3 years before New Hope, which is right in the middle of Rebels and all that kind of stuff. When I looked on my timeline for notes I'd taken from different sources, in the Rogue One visual guide, in the Rebel Files, there's a book called Star Wars Rebel Files, which came out a couple years ago, written by Dan Wallace. And he mentions that at 3 years before New Hope, there was some of the early rebellion before it became the Rebel Alliance, like right before, there was battles on Fest, which is where Cassian is from, because that's the Rogue One visual guide says he's from Fest. And it was basically that system was trying to retain its independence from the Empire, and which I think is in the Atrivis sector. It's either Atrivis or a Travis. I think both got used because there was a misspelling in one, and then they like, oh, it's two systems. But anyway, the timeline of this in that book just happens to match where they placed the Andor series, and now I wonder if they're going to show the planet Fest, because this goes back to Dark Forces also. Fest was shown in the game. It's the planet where you pick up, I think it's the Frick. It's the PH Frick, not
Right.
Frickin' A. Where you're looking for that that's the armor that the Dark Troopers have. But yeah, it was on Fest, which is like a cold planet, and then you go in and there's an Imperial base. And then it was also from the old West End Games role-playing game. And it's a level in Rogue Squadron from 1998. So whatever happens in Andor, I would place good money that there's going to be something going on Fest. So, Cassian's from there. He probably got his firsthand taste of a good Imperial battle on that planet. That's my take from it. So yeah, Andor looks great.
Yeah, I'm excited.
I'm excited. And then we also got a Rogue Squadron film coming. Now, I was at the store when I read this comment. I was like scrolling on my Facebook yesterday, and I'm like, what? A Rogue Squadron film? Are you kidding? This is awesome. Like, I don't even, and apparently, I didn't realize this until earlier today, it's set after Rise of Skywalker. So, what does that mean? Does that mean Poe? Are we going to have Poe lead Rogue Squadron? I'm just happy that it's X-Wings and it's Rogues. I mean, it could be anything. And if it's just those two things, I'm totally happy.
Oh no, it's kind of interesting that they would do that, because it's so Uncharted, right?
It is Uncharted.
It seems like they would want to
and that's just the rumor at this point. I can't.
Oh, it is just a rumor.
I don't think it's confirmed. Or there was some
nothing I read confirmed that.
There was a line. Somebody's official said something that insinuated.
I would be shocked, to be honest. I would be super shocked.
I'll have to dig up
it after that, because
I'll have to dig it up later.
Because it's like, how
the
many?
Empire's gone.
Yeah, how many times, guys? How many times?
We
got remnants of remnants. It's like you
might be right.
You've wiped the Imperial turd once, right? And then you wiped again. How many times you got to wipe?
Looking for the chewy center in the middle.
You got a dingleberry of Imperials hanging out on a couple systems.
Welcome to Star Wars Unfiltered, ladies and gentlemen.
Well, no, you know what it is? By that time, the Resistance is literally just a few X-Wings.
It's a couple guys in their garage. So maybe the Final Order gets a little inspired and bounces back.
I would prefer maybe something, post
Jedi.
Yeah, post Return of the Jedi.
Put it put it where the Rogue Squadron novels were, which started 2.5 years after Return of the Jedi, and then mostly covered the next couple years, and then the Isard's Revenge was post Thrawn trilogy, and then Starfighters of Adumar, the last book, was later, like around Planet of Twilight. But yeah, I'm just happy. Look, it could be anything, but I think there's more story potential closer to the classic trilogy. Yes. Who knows? Maybe it could still be even within the trilogy, like pre-Empire Strikes
I
Back.
I would like that.
Yeah.
It could be. Well, the problem is if you're doing that, then it's like, what do you do with Luke? Because Luke was in Rogue Squadron,
Right.
right?
Yeah, okay.
So
There.
then, so
Yeah.
but it could be post Empire when he's he's not going to be in Rogue Squadron then because
But
he's
then
doing.
also, is it gonna? It would have to basically require a recasting of Wedge. Which I
I'm
don't have
okay
a.
with that.
I'm okay. I would be okay.
I
Yeah.
if they give me Wedge, I would be happy. I don't
Yes.
mind recasting because I like Wedge, and I'd much prefer Wedge to be in it as a character
Yes.
than just a bunch of new people,
Right.
which is
Now,
okay
also,
too. But
I think that was another reason the post Rise of Skywalker rumor was getting traction, was that maybe they were getting Dennis Lawson for that. But I don't know.
it's
I
just
just
not necessary. I mean, I like Dennis Lawson and stuff, but it's like, dude, you threw him in like for
for 2
literally
seconds.
2 seconds. Like, it's
And
fine.
then you didn't even put him in an X-wing. Put him in
Yeah,
as
I
a
know, right?
Falcon
Come on.
gunner.
Oh my gosh. Yeah.
That was the most wasted golden opportunity I think I've ever seen in a Star
He
Wars
should have
movie.
been in a rusty, dilapidated X-wing.
T65. Not
Yeah,
even the T70, but a T65.
yeah, yeah. Just S foils are stuck in attack position, and
It's missing a wing like my old X-Wing toy back when I was a kid. I had 3 S foils. There was a wing that kept popping off. Anyway, and then Rogue Squadron is going to be directed by the lady who did Wonder Woman, Penny.
lady
I couldn't remember her
Patty
name.
Jenkins, Patty Jenkins.
Okay, Patty Jenkins. I'm sorry, I'm not up on my DC news. You know your DC better than me.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, it should be good. I mean, I don't think that they needed to like point out that her father was a fighter pilot and all this
Yeah,
stuff. I feel like that's kind of like to assuage any fears from the more misogynistic
the
crowd.
guys.
Yeah.
We want our Top Gun in
What
space.
we gonna get was it Tony Scott, Ridley's brother? They're gonna
Right.
dig him up, clone him to make a Top Gun in
Rogue
space.
Squadron movie. Oh, what if we just get Tom Cruise in Star Wars? You know what? Okay, even though I just said
I
that as a joke, I would be down.
I
I would.
I have talked to my cousin about this. How much as we, and then probably you too, and a lot of people, you want to hate Tom Cruise because he's good looking, he's successful.
Look, I love him, but his personal life is separate in my
Yeah,
completely separate in how I
it's
perceive him.
you
So
want to hate him, but you can't. He's just too good. He makes really good movies. He makes good decisions. He's a good actor.
he
Like,
look, and the biggest plus I give him with everything he does is passion.
oh
That
yeah,
guy never ever goes into anything half-ass,
no,
and
he never phones it in.
never phones it in. He is super passionate, and he's diverse too. He's done a lot of different characters over these last, especially since the 90s. He's been just all kinds of things,
Well,
whether it was, you know,
who would have thought that we would have been down for Woody Harrelson in a Star Wars movie, right?
yeah,
But
dude,
we got
yeah, I
Beckett,
know.
and everybody loves
Mr.
Beckett.
Mr. Kingpin and Natural
That's a
Born
good movie.
Killers.
That's a good movie.
I know, right? I saw that in the theater.
Yeah, me
Um,
too. I love that movie.
but yes, who would have thought that Woody Harrelson would work? And he was great. So we are getting familiar faces in our Star Wars here and there, and I'm just saying, just throwing it out there. I am not a Tom Cruise hater. I am a Tom Cruise as an actor supporter.
Yeah.
As an actor.
Anyway,
Anyway,
I don't think that's happening, so it's fine.
yeah, that was a little speculation on our part.
Yeah, I think Patty Jenkins is.
Yeah,
she's a good director.
Rogue
She'll be good.
Squadron, thumbs up, thumbs up. I'm down. Ahsoka is going to be probably a limited series. I think they're saying just
I
like
think
a
that is
one-off.
what the press release
Yeah.
said.
What's interesting is on the logo, on the iconography in the background, it looks like the world's between worlds. So
yep.
here we go.
Here we go.
Legends is now canon. So no, and what's interesting though is this.
No.
This is exactly
this is where they wipe the sequel trilogy from canon.
it might be, but you know what? You were spot on with your backdoor pilot theory with the Jedi episode of Mando.
Yeah.
You were spot on. I mean, everyone was kind of saying that. This is obviously referring to things we're going to see elsewhere with Thrawn. But, I mean, yeah, this is it. This is going to be the thing where, because it's set during The Mandalorian. And so we're going to probably see, probably get an answer to what happens with Ezra.
I would think so. My next theory would be, and backdoor pilot. That's not like a new thing. So it's not earth-shattering theory, but
no,
this limited series will set up the subsequent sequel series to Rebels.
I could see that. that. Yeah, absolutely. And it's other than these things, it's hard to speculate on story. Other than Thrawn is probably definitely involved. So it's just interesting to see what happens. And I'm glad it's Rosario. That would make sense. Why have her in a one-off on Mando unless you're going to get her for other things? So
yeah,
in a way, Mandalorian was the test to see how the fans like it. So this is cool. See more of her. Also set within the same time frame. All of these are building and building just like the MCU with their interconnected stories. We have Rangers of the New Republic. I just love the title. I love anything that references the New Republic because
it's very old EU.
It's very old EU. It's very Bantam days kind of feeling. And I just see that title and it reminds me of the old Western Games books like Galaxy Guide 10, Rangers of the New Republic.
Yeah.
I think people are guessing, and I was kind of guessing too, this might have to do with Kara. Like
I hope so.
She becomes like a New Republic Ranger or officer or something. And then she gets pulled in on these missions, which then connect with Ahsoka and Mando. I have no idea, but that's that's kind of what's percolating in my head. And then we have Lando, which there's nothing announced as far as casting or whatever. I think people are thinking this is post Solo, pre A New Hope, but it could very well be pre Solo. We might see Lando with the Millennium Falcon, and L3, which kind of would make sense because then that would give them a chance to play around with the kind of familiar stuff that we know.
Well,
and,
what I would like is if it sort of had 2 feet each in different time periods.
I know what you're gonna say because people are saying it, but go ahead. I love it.
So that it would go back and forth between Donald Glover as young Lando and Billy Dee as old Lando.
Yes.
And maybe it's just, old Lando recounting stories or something. That might be a little cliche and a little too close to.
But what's funny is I heard on one I'll say rival competitor channel, someone was saying it'd be interesting if the stories might not be totally true, if Billy D's narrating them and maybe he's twisting some of the facts or changing things, and then that affects the, you could almost do like a comedic like twisting of this of fact and fiction
Yeah.
as he tells these stories, which would open up some possibilities. But uh, also, I think Alex at Star Wars Explained said they had the perfect opportunity to call this the Lando Calrissian Chronicles or just the Calrissian
Hmm.
Chronicles. That would have been funny. But yeah, you're right though. Billy D in the later timeline recounting stories of his young self played by Donald Glover.
Just the young Indiana
Yeah.
Jones. Yeah, young Indiana Jones
Yeah.
Chronicles.
Yeah, just don't make old Lando be 92 years old
And
like Indy
with an eye patch.
with an eye patch and a cane or whatever.
I don't care.
Um,
As long as we get Buffy raw, that's what I want.
oh, that actually. I was thinking about what would be my number one Star Wars dream now that like Thrawn is recanonized and all these things. Buffy Raw might be my old school slash obscure Star Wars recanonization dream.
Yeah.
Um, I mean, gosh, he was so perky and funny and unique, and
Yeah, his design is super unique. I'd
yeah,
like
there's
to
no
see that in a and
starfish.
his whole thing, like the whole
His
thing with
shtick.
that race of
Yes,
mechanical beings,
yes.
AI.
What was the name? They had a name.
I don't remember.
I think they were named in the essential chronology, like they were unnamed in the book, but some of the V. But anyway,
I think they had
yeah,
something to do with the Yuzin Vong too, if I remember
yeah.
correctly.
It was insinuated that the Yuzin Vong escaped their galaxy because then those other guys were coming for him or something.
Yeah.
One of those extra galactic events. Yeah, Buffy Raw was just a super cool character. If somebody has never read the Lando Calrissian Adventures, it's not for everybody. They are pulpy and kind of weird but
Stop calling me master.
they're good. They're so good.
They're my
Anyway,
favorite. Yeah.
yeah. And then we have the Acolyte, which is in the latter part of the High Republic era. I think Wikipedia penned this, and they might just be speculating. It's just Wikipedia, but they penned it at 100 years before A New Hope, roughly 70
Ooh,
something years before Phantom Menace.
interesting. Because it says on the blurb on StarWars.com they mention a mystery thriller that
Yeah.
delves into shadowy secrets and emerging dark side powers in the final days of the High Republic era. So I wonder if it could at least hint at Plagueis,
Yes, people.
possibly.
I think some fans have been thinking that, or at least the Sith in some regard. Like maybe the Jedi, maybe this is their hint that they were still around these last 900 years, and the Jedi briefly, tracked them down or something, and then
Yeah.
they think they obliterated them again, and the Sith escape. Whatever is going to happen with this, I'm really on board. I'm excited. This is going to be our first Star Wars live action thing that's in not really ancient times per se, but at least 100 years before the Phantom Menace, which we've only had in the realms of novels, comics, and games. So that will be very interesting.
Hopefully we get those dinosaurs that we saw
Yeah,
on the
those,
whiteboard.
those whiteboard, yeah, the High Republic dinosaurs. Um, so yeah, more news on that as it comes out, I'm sure. We have Obi-Wan Kenobi now officially titled. It's kind of a mouthful. Like I still kind of like the idea of it just being Kenobi, but
They should have named it Obi-Wan parenthesis Ben and
Ben
parenthesis Kenobi.
Kenobi, like in the old cast list at the end of A New Hope.
Or honestly, to be perfectly honest, I think Ben Kenobi would have been a better name.
I like
Right?
that, and I hope they delve more into why he chooses the name Ben.
It seems like it
Because
would be significant, and
yeah, yeah,
Disney kind of pushed that forward, right? With Kylo being named
right,
Ben,
right.
which is still weird to me because it's not as if Leia knew,
r- yeah.
Obi-Wan
I
as Ben
mean,
at all.
it must have been a Bill Organa thing where she's like, "Well, he was friends with my father, my adoptive father." So
Ooh, that'd be interesting.
I figure that's, and oh, I would say, who knows? Maybe we'll see Jimmy Smits again
That'd
in
be great.
Obi-Wan Kenobi, and
Presumably, we would see him maybe
in Andor.
in Andor. Yeah.
And we know for a fact that Genevieve O'Reilly is going to be in Andor playing Mon Mothma again.
Yes.
So this is all. I think this is another case where probably Obi-Wan's going to connect to Andor and then going to connect to probably Lando, which will be in the same pre-A New Hope era.
That might be a little much.
Well, I mean, just with galactic events or
Yeah, I
technology.
know, but kind of the whole thing was with Obi-Wan being on Tatooine in exile, quasi exile, is that he's just there. Like he's not
Yeah.
doing anything else. He's
Well,
he's
and
there.
that was the other thing. The press release hinted that he and Vader are getting a rematch, and I almost thought, is that just like the casting is a rematch? Like I could see that, but like,
Yeah,
are they really gonna have Vader and Obi-Wan
it's
face each
really
other again?
it's weird. It's really weird because they confirm Hayden is returning as Darth Vader, and it's kind of like, why?
I can see that point of view. I think they wanted to just have it be here's why I think they're doing it with Hayden. I think they wanted the pairing of them as friends, as actors,
Oh,
to be
yeah,
together because they have a rapport that was present on Revenge of the Sith and Clones. So
yeah,
I think they're like, let's just get the old family back. Hayden did do Vader for the end scene.
yes.
He could pull it off at least. He might not.
Presumably, if it'll be closer to Revenge of the Sith than to A New Hope, I would think.
It's here. They actually juggled the timeline a little bit because a year ago when it was first announced, it was 11 BBY, and about 7 or 8 years after Sith, now it's 9 BBY. So it's still pretty much in the middle between the
Yeah,
trilogies. They just knocked off 2 years and had it be closer to A New Hope. Um, Probably because of COVID. Like everyone's getting another wrinkle or two. Let's just make it a couple years closer.
Hayden's gonna have to bulk up again.
Yeah, and I'm sure he will. Actually, I saw an interview with him on YouTube. It's probably just a year or two ago. He still looks really good. He's our age, but he's aged really well. He's not let himself go or anything.
Like us.
Like me, that's for sure. Um, no, he's still looking good. As far as I know, he's still doing small independent movies here and there and things like
Yeah.
that.
Maybe he won't even be. Well, I mean, they say Vader, but maybe there'll be some like force communication or something. I
Yeah,
don't know.
I think
Maybe
people are
they don't even.
speculating. Well, we'll see him probably with the mask off, probably in a bacta tank. Probably. It's like hey Hayden, we hired you to sit in a tub all day. Here you go.
They'll
Here's a
be
few
wrinkly.
bucks.
I don't know. It should be interesting regardless. I
Yeah.
um I hope though if there I mean okay I hope that there isn't any sort of like lightsaber duel or rematch. Okay,
Yeah,
but
I'm a little anxious
if
about.
there is, I hope it's really stilted and awkward like the A New Hope duel. Right?
They would almost have to have it be, they would have to tone it down at least halfway. Halfway, well, I mean, if you're going from trilogy to trilogy, really just cut it down halfway. Have it be more of a psychological duel or or some I mean, really, in A New Hope, that's what it is. It's the history of the characters that adds the levity to the duel that we're
Yeah.
watching. So if they're going that route, maybe use that angle. Whatever happens, I'm excited because I trust them. I do trust them, and I trust Ewan.
Your faith your faith is your
My friends is
weakness.
yours. Yeah, I know, right? Your faith in Disney is your downfall. We'll see. We'll see. But I'm pretty hopeful here. Ewan doesn't do
Maybe
shit with just anybody. When he comes back to something or does anything, it's good.
yeah. I'm hopeful it'll be good. I'm sure it'll be good. It'll be interesting. I just
Yeah.
hope there isn't a duel. But um maybe too it would be interesting if they got that tech that that company made that David Prowse had that YouTube video and he
Oh, I
was
heard
gushing
about
over
that.
it because he's like
Oh,
oh if
the
we had
voice
the
change.
voice change. He's like oh if they had this voice changing system back when I did Vader they could have used my voice instead of David Prowse or instead of James Earl Jones. And I was just watching. I was like, this is one of the saddest YouTube videos I've ever seen in my entire life. This guy is still
Oh,
butthurt about his voice
I
being changed.
know. I know.
So maybe they'll do that for Hayden,
Yeah, you never know. You never know.
or we'll
And
get that really thin, exhausted sounding Vader that that we got
James did
in
in Rogue One.
Rogue
But
One.
that was the thing, though. When James Earl Jones did the voice in Rebels for a few episodes,
He was
it
perfectly
sounded
fine.
great. It sounded really good.
It was just bad takes, I think.
I guess it was just bad takes, or he had a case of asthma that day. I don't know. But yeah, it should be interesting, whatever happens. And Obi-Wan Kenobi, I think, is still set for 2022, I think. Now on top of that, there is Star Wars A Droid Story, which I think there was some confusion in the press release. People were trying to figure out what it is, but I think it's still just a Disney Plus thing. And it said ILM would be working closely with Lucasfilm, developing new technologies to tell the story about a new hero who works with C-3PO and R2-D2.
Great,
And I'm
another
like,
new droid I'm supposed to care about to sell
well,
toys, like
wait, actually,
BB-8 and the other little camera guy.
well, now that you mention it, maybe it is a droid. I actually was under the impression, as I read the press release, I was under the impression that it was going to be a normal human or alien
Oh,
character
maybe
that was
yeah.
the hero.
I'm only assuming.
Yeah, but you know what? It is called a droid story, so maybe it is a new droid. Maybe they're all three going on some adventure. But what's interesting is that we don't know when it takes place, and we don't know anything about it. I mean, it's just like because the droids are ageless, so we don't know where it is in the timeline. It's just like, what is it? Where is it? Who knows? I'm I, I'm down for anything. It's probably I love the droids. In fact I just finished rewatching the old droids cartoon for the
The-
second time in my life. So that was fun.
I've only
And
seen a few episodes. The only thing I asked, because what I really liked about droids was Stuart Copeland did the
the
opening
old theme
theme.
song.
Yeah.
Right, right.
Anything connected to the police, I'll get on board for. So if they get him back to do the theme song for this show,
Yeah.
then I'll
And
be
you
on
know what's
board.
funny is when you hear the opening theme and the end credit theme on Droids, you're like, that's Stewart, because it sounds so much like his drumming during Synchronicity.
Yeah,
It is
yeah.
like spot on. But anyway, that's a whole other tangent. Yeah, and I also just reread the old Droids Marvel comics that were not reprinted very often. I think they got one reprinting in recent years, but
Yeah.
those were cool. And I love R2 and 3PO. So and I'm assuming we're gonna get Anthony Daniels doing C-3PO because why would we not? Because
Yeah.
as long as he's still able to do it. I know he's like in his early 70s now, but
He can do
sure,
C3PO's voice.
sure.
Easy. He
I
can phone that in literally at this point.
literally, yeah. Um and then we have Star Wars Visions, which is an anthology thing.
I'm really excited about this.
Me too. I actually am too because I loved anime growing up. The influences on Star Wars and and vice versa back into anime from Star Wars has been immense over the years. And I'm just excited to see a cultural interpretation using Japanese studios and going with because Resistance, when we got it, even though it was inspired by anime, it was still very much a CG slash Americanized animated look. And I wanted I want a straight up old school anime looking Star Wars story. Um that TIE Fighter fan made one that was made.
Oh, that was yeah.
Oh, that thing is gorgeous and amazing. And every time I watch it, I would probably watch it once a year, once every couple years. It's just like, oh man, I can't believe a fan made this. And if we had a whole series kind of like that, wow. But anyway, this is an anthology. Don't know where in the timeline or what characters or anything, but I'm sure it's going to be super cool. I'm on board. I got nothing other than that.
Yeah.
um and then as far as non-Star Wars, we have Willow. So that was and Warwick Davis is returning
Yep.
and I am excited. I'm on board for Willow. It's something we've wanted for years.
Yeah, they just hopefully they'll confirm what's his face? Oh man. Kevin
Val
Pollak.
Kilmer. Oh.
No, okay. Val, I think I don't know. I love Val, but he's not doing too good these days.
I think he is in the new Top Gun sequel, from what I heard, in a small part. But
Yeah, but
no,
he had a rough bout of that throat cancer, and
no, he did. He did.
He has really affected his voice and stuff.
Right.
So I mean, whatever. If they want to bring him back, it'd be great because he was
He'll be
great in Willow.
an Asian king of what was the Tiraz Lean or something.
If they want to bring, they can bring anybody back.
They can bring
Willow, and
anybody
I would be
back.
happy. Well, I mean, and I would be happy and fit them in however they want to fit them in.
You're right though about Kevin Pollak. I would love to see him return as the one of the brownies.
One of the brownies, yeah.
He
the
was,
other brownie. Who played the other?
I don't know if I ever even knew. I knew they were both comedians. I knew the other one was a comedian too. I can't even remember the brownies' names because it was
it's Rick Overton.
Okay.
The name is not familiar, but if you saw his face, you'd recognize it because he's in a lot of stuff.
Okay. And it's funny because when I saw Willow as a kid, the brownies cracked me the fuck up.
Yeah, they were great.
When he falls into the beer, it's so like cartoony and kid-like, but I was like 8 years old, so it's like the perfect age to laugh at that stuff.
I loved Willow. I love Willow, and
not a woman. Not a woman. Oh man,
I can't wait.
We could go on and on about Willow. We might have to do a all Willow podcast.
Yeah, there you
go. But I'm happy they're doing something because it's been rumored that there'd be a movie sequel for years and years. Everyone wanted it. Warwick was always on board. I mean, what's he gonna do? Leprechaun 18?
Lep 18. Lep back.
Remember
back to the hood again.
Bump face from Lep 18. Yeah. So no, it's just great to bring him in again. And I mean, they kind of have to. They couldn't have Willow without Willow being in it.
It just occurred to me. You mentioned a bum face.
Yeah.
I wonder if they'll have Joel Edgerton back.
Good question.
As
Owen Lars
and what's her face? And what's her face?
Bonnie Peace or Pice.
That sounds right.
Yeah. Because goodness knows she got one line of dialogue in Attack of the Clones. Hello.
Hello.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
wrap. Thank you. Get off the set.
Yeah. And there was deleted scenes with her too, talking with Padme and stuff
Yeah.
that were cut. But no, that would be really good to see Joel Edgerton return in Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Yeah.
And then last thing I wanted to briefly mention, Indiana Jones 5, which
It's not happening.
it's not happening.
I would bet money that it's not going to happen. They mention it, but even on the Star Wars website, they don't even have a logo for it.
You know, I
I
feel
have
like they
no
just
hope.
no Indiana Jones 5, no
No
hope.
hope.
I yeah, at this point, because of people pulling out, it's like one person per year. Like first it was, well, Lucas
I
kind
don't
of
think Lucas ever was attached
ever
to
was
it,
involved.
and I was never. That always soured me to
Yeah.
it, to be honest,
Yeah.
because he was the idea man, you know.
Yeah. He was the one where Spielberg, they're sitting on the beach. This is like after Star Wars. They're sitting on the beach. Spielberg says, "I've always wanted to do a James Bond movie." And Lucas says, "I got something better than James Bond." And
And
then
it
that
was
was,
always their baby,
yep,
and it's like if one's not in it, then it's like, but
I
you know,
know.
Spielberg's not even directing it, and it's like,
I know.
forget it, just
I
forget
know.
it.
It's gonna be the Jaws 2 of the series, which, I mean, the Jaws movies go really downhill really fast, but
Why, you
Jaws
know,
2,
it could be the
Jaws,
Jaws 4, right?
it
I
could be the
mean,
Jaws 4, but
you
I
could
feel
argue
like
that Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was Jaws 3,
you
which was just
could
like
actually.
it's kind of cool, but it's a little wild too, you know, it's
I need to
kind of
see the
weird.
Jaws movies again. I've literally not seen the sequels since Your House
Oh,
15 years
since
ago.
our Jawsathon.
Yeah, since the Jawsathon.
You
Jaws,
know, it's funny. You know, what's
yeah.
funny about that is that I bought 2, 3, and 4 for that Jawsathon. They were
Yeah. No, I remember
bargain
you
basement.
bought them. You bought
Yeah,
them like that day or the day before.
yeah. My uncle owns Jaws. We watched his copy of Jaws. So
Right.
now I don't live with my uncle anymore. I only own Jaws 2, 3, and 4. I don't even own Jaws 1. So if I
It's
put my
good.
DVDs on a shelf, somebody would be like,
See,
"What is wrong with you?"
I seriously. And what's funny is Jaws 1 is the only one I own on DVD. So we need to combine our DVDs like Voltron and
Yeah.
have them form the ultimate shark. We'll see
Uh,
whatever that happens. Celebration road trip, we'll do it.
yeah.
Whatever decade that happens. But yeah, Jaws 1 I watch every few years, and I've seen it so much these last 20 years that like I could never get tired of it. It's like Star Wars or Close Encounters. I could just watch it
You know,
endlessly.
I try to get my 6-year-old nephew to watch it, but I haven't been able to trick him into watching it yet. I even tell him, I'm like, hey, yeah, let's put on Jaws. He's like, hey, I like sharks. I like sharks. I'm not afraid of anything. He goes like, you want to watch Jaws? No. I was like, how about we just watch just the first 5 minutes, kid?
Yeah.
Just the first 5 minutes. No. I was like, I can't get him to even
Oh man.
agree to that.
You know, the first time I saw it was on television, so obviously there's probably a few shots edited here and there, but I
It doesn't
I
make a
was I
difference.
was 6 years old. I remember because I looked up the date of its network premiere or when it aired.
Hmm.
I saw it, so I was about 6, and when Quint is being dragged in and bloodied at the end, that
Oh man,
traumatized me really
I
bad.
don't. I don't like swimming
I don't
that
either.
much.
I'm not a deep
Even in a
water person.
pool. Even in a
Yeah.
pool.
I like
I
lounging in the water. I like,
yeah.
getting my feet wet. I am not a ocean swimming person. Yeah,
No,
not
thank
me.
you. Not since Jaws. That's the problem. Like, because for me it was cable, right? We had
Yeah.
cable, and like you know, it's just cable. You just turn stuff on. It's like, oh, Jaws on
So,
HBO. Okay. Okay. I'm not going swimming anymore.
right.
Forget it.
It for me it's that fear of not being able to see what's under you. It's like
Yes.
you have this giant world you're floating in, and it
Well,
goes down for miles in some cases, and you
it's like
cannot
anything.
see.
It's like anything, like a fear of the dark, right? It's fine, but once you open the door a crack for your imagination to start thinking about stuff, then
Yeah,
that's it, it's done. And
it's
especially the ocean, because all you have to do is just think, like, what if there's a 25-foot great white right under me right
I
now?
know, I know. Anyway, and on that note, there is your episode of the Star Wars Unfiltered podcast. I will remind people that if they want to contact us, they can reach us at starwarsunfiltered@yahoo.com. We have our Instagram page, just look us up, and we have of course, the YouTube channel where this will be posted. And we have, what am I forgetting? I know there's one more thing. Oh, the Facebook page. Look us up on Facebook. And I hope you enjoyed our post Star Wars Jaws conversation. And until the next episode, everyone, take care.
Good night.
Good night.